In this video, we will look at how to identify the parts and graph a hyperbola. So we're asked to find the coordinates of the center, the vertices, the foci, and the equations for the asymptotes, and then graph our given equations. So the first example, we have x squared minus 36y squared equals 36. So the first thing I'm going to do is determine, is this a horizontal or is it a vertical hyperbola? And the way we do that, remember, is to look at our first term. We have x squared and it's minus y squared. So that tells me I have a horizontal hyperbola. And the reason why that's important is because now I know what my standard form should be. My standard form for a horizontal hyperbola is going to be x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. Well, if I look right now, this is not in my standard form, and the reason why is because it has to be equal to 1. So what I'm going to do is divide every term by the 36 on the right, because 36 divided by 36 gives me 1. And so I have to divide both terms on the left side by 36. And so that gives me x squared over 36 minus y squared equals 1. Now that is the standard form. Now if we want for our work, what we can do is we can put in the over 1, and that way we can see what b squared is. After I identify whether it's vertical or horizontal and make sure it's in standard form, the next thing I do, like I've always done, is identify H, identify K, identify A, identify B, and C. So let's take a look. Here, HK is 0 and 0 because you're not adding or subtracting anything from our X and Y values. So that's H and K. Now let's look at A and B. Well, I see A squared is 36. That means A is 6. I see B squared is 1. That means B is 1. The way you find C squared now is you do A squared plus B squared. So I'm going to do C squared is 36 plus 1. C squared is 37, which means C is the square root of 37, which if you want to use a decimal is approximately 6.1. So now I know A, now I know B, now I know C, I know H, I know K. It's all fair game for me to find all the parts. First thing I'm going to find and I'm going to state is, what is my center? The center is located at the coordinate HK. So my center is 0, 0. So let's plot that point. Then what I do is I identify my vertices. Remember, you can use your formula for the vertices. And the formula for horizontal, so we can see it, is H plus or minus A, comma K. Now, personally, I don't want to use the formulas. I want to know the concepts. And the concept says that the distance from the center to each vertex is 8 units. So I could just count 6 units to the right. Now mark them in blue. So 6 units to the right from the center, 6 units left from the center. And so I can see right away, well, hey, my coordinates for the vertices are 6, 0 and negative 6, 0. You want to use the formula, you can, because your center is 0, 0, so that's H and K. Your A value is 6, so it's 0 plus or minus 6, comma K. 0 plus 6 is 6, 0 minus 6 is negative 6. So the formula works, but conceptually it's easier just to know what does A mean graphically and what does B mean graphically. So that's your vertices. Next, what I'm going to do is identify the foci. And remember, the foci are located C units from the center on the axis that it's opening on. So that means the formula here is H plus or minus C, comma K. So I'm going to use, for our foci, Let's do a little maroon. We know our foci then is square root of 37, which is 6.1. So I'm going to go a little bit beyond 6 here. I'll put an F for foci, but a little bit beyond 6 here, and put another F. So what's the coordinates? You can use the formula if you want, 0 plus or minus, and you can even use a decimal if you want. 0 plus or minus 6.1, comma 0. I prefer to always just use the radicals, so that way I can always see the exact value of c. So that would be 0 plus or minus the square root of 37, comma 0, which means square root of 37, comma 0, and negative square root of 37, comma 0. If you want to use the decimals, that would be 6.1, 0, and negative 6.1, 0. I don't care which one you use, it's one or the other for it. So that is the coordinates of our foci. Next, what I'm going to do is I need to identify the asymptotes. Now, we're not going to identify the equation of the asymptotes. We're going to identify the slope because it's all based off of going from the center. Now, since this is horizontal, you can go look at the formulas if you want, which the formula is going to say it's plus or minus b over a. But understand the concept. Why is it b over a? And the reason why is a, the distance from center to vertices, is a run. And so that's why it's on the bottom. So the slope of the asymptotes is plus or minus 1 over 6. So how do we use that? From the center, go up 1 to the right 6. And then you go down 1 left 6. And you repeat it with the negative slope now. You go down 1 right 6. And you go up 1 left 6. So you use the slope to help you graph the asymptotes. So to graph the asymptotes, we're going to have one with the positive slope for it. And let me extend it across the entire graph. And I can even change the color for it to match the green so we can see it. And I'm going to do it again over here. And I will change the color for it as well. And so there are the asymptotes for our graph. So now to graph the actual hyperbola, what you do is you go to your vertex, you take a curve and approach each asymptote. Don't go beyond it, you approach it. And so there's the one side, and we come through and around, and here is the other side for the hyperbola. That's our graph. That's it. Identify A, B, H, K, identify C. Center, vertices, foci, asymptotes. I don't care if you use the radicals for the coordinates of your foci or if you use the decimals for the coordinates of the foci. Just so you can follow the formula, understand the concept. Let's look at the next example. So the next example I see right away, it is written in my standard form. And that tells me, since it's y squared term minus the x squared term, that this one is a vertical hyperbola. That allows me to know which formulas to use for it. Again, the first thing I do is I identify my center. The center is coordinate hk, so here we can see that our h is 1 and our k is negative 6. So 1, negative 6, that gives us our h is 1 and our k as negative 6. So I can plot that, 1, negative 6. There is my center. I then go and identify my vertices. And the way we do that is we need to find our a squared and our b squared terms. So since this is a vertical, we know that it is y minus k squared over a squared. A squared is 24. Sorry, a squared is 4. So a is 2. B squared is 25. And so b is 5. If I want to find c squared, I do a squared plus b squared. So 4 plus 25 is 29. So C is the square root of 29 for the exact radical, or the square root of 29 is approximately 5.4 for the decimal. Now I have everything, HK, ABC. I can go to town and find all the vertices, the asymptotes, and the foci. So the first thing I want to do next is find the coordinate of the vertices. Now, since this is a vertical, that tells me my vertices are up and down, which means my A is being added and subtracted from the K. So the formula for this would be H comma K plus or minus A. So if you want to use the formula, you can. I can see here that my H is 1, so 1 comma your K, which is -6, plus or minus your A. Personally, I just believe in counting. Since I know A is 2 and it's vertical, I can go up 2 units, there's a vertex. I can go down 2 units, and there's a vertex. And I would get my coordinates. They would be 1 comma -4 and 1 comma -8. That's it. So those are the coordinates of my vertices for it. Next, I need to find the foci. And the foci are located C units from the center on your transverse axis, which we said was vertical. So the formula for the foci would be your C value being added and subtracted from your K. So want to use the formula, you can use the formula. You're going to have 1 comma -6 plus or minus. You could do the square root of 29, or you can use 5.4. So I would go, if I'm going to graph these, 5.4 units from the center up and down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5.4, a little under halfway. And so there is one of the foci. Go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little under halfway, there is the coordinate of the other foci. And so put an F there so we know that is the coordinates of the foci. So what if I were to look at the decimal approximation for it? Well, if you're adding and subtracting 5.4 from -6, you're going to get 1 comma. For the minus would be a -11.4. For adding 5.4 to it would be the coordinate 1 comma -0.6. That's if you want to use the decimal approximation. If you want to do the exact radicals, go ahead. It's 1 comma -6 plus the square root of 29 and 1 comma -6 minus the square root of 29. Since we actually know what it is as a decimal, we can actually count on the graph and leave it in this form when it comes to the location of the mass coordinates. Now we need to find our slope of the asymptotes. You can look at the formula if you want, but I prefer to know that it's based off your A and B values. And A, the distance from the center to the vertex, is a rise. So that means it's rise over run, so A over B. So the slopes I will be working with here are going to be plus or minus your A, which is 2 over 5. So here we go. Let's graph those points that we're going to find by using the slope. So up 2 to the right 5. You would go down 2 and the left 5. I would go down 2 and right 5. And I would go up 2 and left 5. And let's connect those with our dashed lines for it. And I'm going to extend them across the grid. And so there are the asymptotes. And again, I can change the color so we can distinguish between them and the graph itself. So now that we have everything we need, we found all the parts, let's actually graph the hyperbola. You start at your vertex, and here's the key. You can't just go down. The graph has to approach the asymptotes and never cross. So you see this one's a little bit wider than the other one was. And so you start at the vertex and you approach and curve at the same time the asymptotes, but you never cross. And so there's the graph of the hyperbola, our vertical hyperbola. So I hope you found this helpful when it comes to graphing. The key is identify A, H, K, B, C, and the concepts for the formulas to graph them.